Hi, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Experience. I'm your host, Steve Hartman, and my guest today is Lou Valentino. Lou Valentino is the creator of the website Yoga Visionaries, where he shares with us many things. He's multi-talented. He's got a large spiritual path that he shares on this website. He's not only an astrologer. We had him on a previous episode to talk about the events of what 2025 can be, but there's other areas of Lou's experience that is very intriguing and thought-provoking, and probably something that we should all at least take a listen to with an open mind, and one of which is the book he wrote. He has an ebook out. It's called The Full Moon Messages from the Pleiadians, UFO Contact 2024-2044. And that is a lot to think about. It's a lot to talk about. And it also brings us to a place where the hell are the Pleiadians and what do they want with us? What's going on? And I say that tongue in cheek, but, back in the 70s, when the New Age, or late 60s, early 70s, when the spawn of the New Age came about, the most we got was, there's Atlantis and all this other stuff. But we're now growing into a time where a lot of these mysterious and fanciful theories are actually now showing proof of actual existence. And it's interesting that we are now back into a realm where we're now seriously discussing it in a level that should be seriously discussed. So I want to take this opportunity to introduce Lou Valentino. Lou, thank you again for coming on board and willing to talk about this. This is going to be a heck of a conversation.
It is. It's going to be wonderful. And I'm so thankful to you for allowing me to, do this podcast, because it seems like I've struggled a little bit over the last 2 years since I did the second edition of the book. I did the first edition at 9, so it's been a while. But to try to get onto a podcast and try and get some interest, because I've watched so many podcasts of all of these topics of extraterrestrials. And a lot of them are very interesting, but I do have some new information. So for those who are tuning in, who are interested in ETs and races, I think they're going to find this very interesting, because I have some information that will be new for them.
Well, what's interesting is when we talk about ETs, we're talking about, for the most part, what everybody thinks of as the ETs, the grays, the big eyes, the ones that look like ET from ET. We don't know about the virtual cornucopia of civilizations that are out there. It's not just those. I mean, there are, if you believe some, there's a reptilian race. There's the Draconians. I mean, all of these things.
Anunnaki.
Well, the Anunnaki is interesting because a lot of people don't. I don't want to say that there's a confusion, but there's a belief that the Anunnaki just happened to be an ancient race before we got here. Whether they came from the stars or not is, until we know. It's just one of those things that, like the Mayans, we know as much about them as we do the Mayans. And when the Mayans are mysterious as, where did they all go? One day they're here and the next day they're gone. So, it's one of those things, and we're going to talk about that.
I'm going to be holding some books up during the interview for people, because I started reading about this in 1984. So we have to go back 40 some odd years. But for other races, the prison of Lyra. This is a book that this is by Liza Royal and Keith Priest. And this gets into the other races that are more benevolent, that came out of the expression of the Lyran system. The Pleiadians are one of them. Arcturians, is another one. The Syrians from Sirius. These are the more benevolent ones. The ones that you're talking about tend to be, especially the grays, or get the most attention. They're the ones with the big eyes.
That's what we associate with extraterrestrial cultures. We don't know about all these other ones.
Because the Zeta Reticuli is what it is. They went underground at one point because they had, because of pollution. A lot of the stuff that's going on right now, environmental issues that throw them underground. And so they had to get used to being living underneath the earth. And then they got the big eyes, how to see. So then they ended up going back to Zeta Reticuli. They live in a parallel reality. So we don't really, some of them supposedly live, there's a few groups of them, and most of them are short. They're about 4 feet tall, And that was, I think, the Roswell incident in 1947 kind of triggered that off, because they had a few of these beings that they had captured from that crash, and they did 2 autopsies on them. And so that kind of stirred up this movement. Like we only hear about the Zeta Reticuli mostly. And unfortunately, we don't hear about the more benevolent ones. Now, this is a picture by award-winning photographer Andre Below. And this is of Ayin, the entity that I channeled from the higher councils of the Pleiadians.
Now, I do want to say that you have these images on your website, which is yogavisionaries.com, because I don't know how well it's not translating well with the webcams and the setup to have. And I don't know the system well enough to whether how I can actually upload and share in real time. But if you are interested in seeing these images, they are beautiful and stunning.
Yeah, right. And the thing that I'm trying to point out is they're human appearing. They don't look like they're dragons or praying mantises or whatever else images are out there. So the more benevolent ones tend to be more human appearing. Not that the other ones are less than, because everything is a part of God's creation.
Now, I should say that, like I said, I printed out. I haven't read the entire book yet. I'm going to. I printed it out because I don't do well with electronic books. I like feeling the things, and I like to make notes and stuff like that.
You're not alone in that. You're not alone.
I printed it out, and just the first 9 pages of the book is you state some fantastic phrasing of stuff that is very thought-provoking. And one of them that you mentioned, you state, quote, "Humans need to reestablish a relationship with silence." And I found that so profound that in its simplicity, it's deep in and of itself. And you use the phrase relationship, that word relationship, in conjunction with silence. Could you expand a little bit about that, on that basic thought?
Well, the meditation, when you think about Lord Krishna, Maharishi Patanjali, who formulated the yoga system and made it into a Ashtanga, 8 limbs of yoga. And then you have Buddha, Lord Buddha, and then you have Jesus, because Jesus basically said that at times Jesus Christ would leave his disciples and go out and pray, they said. And he was going to the silence. He wanted to get away from everything. So I think when we withdraw the senses and calm down through some form of meditation, I teach inner grace meditation, which uses sound as a vehicle to settle the mind down and go into a deeper state of rest than what our deep sleep cycle can provide. When we do that, we emit different in the body, serotonin, melatonin, dopamine. Those give us a natural high in the bliss that we are seeking. So my point is, with that idea of having a relationship with silence, is that we don't do that enough. We're kind of stuck in our intellect a lot, and there's a lot of chatter going on. And what is right? What is wrong? Da 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 da. And you got this dualistic type of energy that never gets really broken, because we just don't sit with ourselves quietly enough to bypass the intellect. It's almost like we're trying to get to a certain point of peace in the world, but we can't get there because we're too busy trying to figure out how to get there.
Like, we can't get to the peace, the outer peace, without achieving inner peace as individuals.
That's correct. That's great. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What does it say in the Bible? Be still and know God. That's what it says. Be still and know it. Know it. Really experience it.
Well, which is an interesting thing when you think that we're all embedded, or we are all made in God's image. So we're actually being told, be still and know God, and be still and know ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's that intimate of a relationship.
And it's that simple.
It's that, it really is. It is that. And we make it so complicated on this planet. That's why we have so many issues with, trying to negotiate peace in the world. It's in our face right now, actually, as we're doing the video. 2025.
Well, we'll get there, I think. And one other thing before we get into the crux of the book, you said also something, quote, individual fulfillment at the cost of cooperation through competition. It's in reference to, I think this was on page 9. I think it was in reference to the type of government as we eventually will get higher up the level of government that we're experiencing now based on that we're so focused on individual fulfillment at the cost of cooperation through competition.
That's right.
If I'm understanding that correctly.
That's correct.
But don't we want to, I mean, I know competition, I joke about, the participation trophies and stuff, but doesn't the drive of being able to compete, maybe not against other things, but just the nature of competition?
It's a great question.
Isn't that one that actually strives internally to be able to be, whether we're in competition with ourselves or someone else, doesn't that kind of drive us to be better at whatever it is we do?
Well, it certainly is the hallmark of planet Earth.
Right. But I mean, in order for us to progress, we learn when we focus on it and we learn where our level is, because competition, I'm not a very competitive person. I just want to be the best I can be. But how do I know I'm the best I can be if I don't have anything to look at?
Well, some of the topics, I will answer the question soon. Some of the topics that we're going to cover in this video is, why don't they get involved? This is one of the questions.
Oh, regarding why don't the aliens get involved?
If there's advanced races, why don't they get involved? The most active dates for UFO contact, which is coming up starting this year. What are their politics like? What is their education like? What is their economics like? Technical advancements and humanitarian project that they're going to be doing. And then what is the new romance? How do we deal with that? So that's some of the topics. Now, as far as the reasons why, I'm going to give you 4 reasons why they're not allowed to come into our environment on planet Earth. And these are the reasons why they could. Okay. The planet is a threat to itself and its own survival. A threat to other planets and their survival. That's the second reason. The third reason, a planet's evolution is holding up the rest of the cosmic family and needs to make an adjustment so the other galactic, intergalactic races can evolve and are ready to move forward. And then the fourth reason is the planet is in a state of graduating, which is what we are right now, in its next evolutionary cycle, and reestablish its relationship to the Federation of Worlds in its local galaxy. So what they're saying, what I've read about is there's a galactic, intergalactic, universal confederation, a government that they have, their own organization that they work together. So eventually they will be working together to help us graduate to another level where we've been kind of stuck for, especially the last 30,000 years, in this kind of frequency of 3 dimension, which is very fleshy. Call it the flesh bodies. We have to feed it. We've got it. Then it doesn't age well and blah, 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 blah. It goes on with all the problems we have. But what is the political ideology of the Pleiadians? In my book, I'm going to times from the book because...
Okay, well, actually, before we go into that, why don't we just go to I'm sorry?
Because it answers your question.
Regarding the competition.
Yeah.
Got it. My bad.
So it says here, what is your political ideology of the Pleiadians? The reason why I'm reading it for viewers is because when I channel this, I do automatic writing. So I'm connecting with Aim, which is my soul twin brother from the Pleiadians, her councils, and we're very intimate. So I don't channel him and my voice changes and all that. I just computer. So this is, and from the collective consciousness, I'm picking up questions that people would ask. So what is the political ideology of the Pleiadians? He says here, our political system is non-political. We do not encourage competing or taking sides, which is what your question was about. We certainly do not need to manipulate each other through any physical means, since we work with light frequencies of energy very well. Love is free in our culture. It is not something we mold with the machinery of mind. We do not live in fear as you do, so we have no need to protect love from itself. Politics is another form of duality, regardless of the form it takes. Humans who are disconnected to the unbounded silence of bliss deep in the mind, heart, and soul, think in terms of competition, an environment of duality, who is right and who is wrong. And your institutions make promises they cannot keep because it is run by man's monster mind, built up to protect it from losing security in life. But the building up of mind only perpetuates the need to protect life, which was freely given to Earth humans a long time ago. Earth humans give their energy away to big government, and he goes on with that. So, the competitive thing, see, what happens is competition gets in the way of divine grace, which is a frictionless flow energy. That's why things move so quickly in higher dimensions, because they're not bumping up and competing with each other. They're collaborating, they're joining, they're merging together and working together to fulfill a desire. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have sports and games and stuff that they, maybe they fly through the air and they
Right.
do all kinds of things like that. They have fun, but the competitiveness is discouraged because it only creates this
envy nature.
Yeah, it's like you want to.
And envy is one of those things that they say we shouldn't be envious of other people.
You want to overpower the other one.
Well, not necessarily. See, I don't know if that's. Yeah, I believe some there are that there's some people who really want to.
But remember, I want to point out that this information is coming from the sixth dimension. So we can't. A lot of people can't relate to this. They're going to think this guy's a wacko. He's whatever information he's coming out with, and they're going to go back into the intellect and start dissecting it. Okay.
And we're living in the third dimension?
The third dimension.
So just in case you're like me and didn't know what dimension we were in, not to be confused with the musicians of the band called the Fifth Dimension, we are in the third dimension. And we're talking about, which is actually going forward, where a lot of these civilizations are based from, which actually goes to my next question in its simplicity, because we're going to get into the book right now. Who are the Pleiadians, and how long have you been engaging with them?
Well, I engage with them every morning when I shave. I am from that area. I am extraterrestrial. So I know that's like, oh, is he getting off on his ego and he's on an ego trip? No, it took, I've been meditating for 46 years, every day, twice a day. Supposedly, I was a part of the original legions, 144,000. That started over 6 million years ago. So I have been a part of a lot of different extraterrestrial groups. I have honorary membership in the Ashtar Command. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm sorry, what was the original question again?
Who are they? Who are those of us who are completely clueless and have not really, we've heard the name, but we've never made the connection. Who are they?
They are an evolved extraterrestrial race that are our ancestors. They actually had spent some time here on Earth at one point. So they have this more connection with our planet, probably more than any other of the extraterrestrial races, because they lived quite a long time here. I had some information that I wanted to share with you, that the star system, the Pleiadians, now the Greeks call it the Seven Sisters. Okay. And it's about 420 light years away, 440. You get different numbers out there. So it's very far away. And these different stars have different names. But it says here the Pleiadians reside in the planet Era, which is almost as large as Earth. They live to be about 700 years old. The extraterrestrial races range from 300 to 1,000 years old. As you go up to the fifth to sixth dimension, it gets even more as you get into the seventh, the eighth, the ninth. It goes all the way up to the 12th dimensions. 12 is the magic number. Okay. 12 disciples of Christ, 12 calendar months, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 notes on the musical alphabet if you count the sharps going up or the flats going down. 12 is it. So the Pleiadians are supposedly around 225,000 years ago before Christ. the Pleiadians discovered a small sun system with a planet called Earth on one of their scouting missions away from the Pleiadians. Now, this comment comes from a woman called Shatara. I'm going to give her credit because I stumbled across her website recently and I resonated with what she was saying. Civilizations have kind of come and gone with extraterrestrials, but the Pleiadians were helpful to build Lemuria and then the Incan and Mayan, like your civilization. And also they had been involved in India and Hawaii.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with what Lemuria is actually had a relationship with the lost continent of Atlantis. There were, if I'm correct in my remembering of that.
Yeah. Atlantis was one of the daughter continents of Lemuria. Lemuria came first. That was the mother. And then gave birth to Atlantis, Egypt, and China, I think. As far as I know, there is a book called You Are Becoming a Galactic Human that Sheldon Neidl put out with Virginia Essene. And this gets into some really interesting history that I haven't seen in any of the other books that I've read about when did Lemuria start and when did it end, and the whole thing. 90,000 years ago, Lemuria started.
Okay. And because there are so many other civilizations that probably a lot of people don't even know exist, where would the Pleiadians rank among all of those civilizations? I think when we spoke yesterday or the other day, I talked about on a totem pole of all of civilizations, where do the Pleiadians, where do they rank as far as their relationship with Earth?
Their relationship with Earth is probably the most intimate out of all because they have, the Zeta Reticuli, the abduction cases and the Greys, they've been, manipulating the DNA and all that stuff and collecting DNA samples from people. But the Pleiadians are the most benevolent, I think, in terms of their relationship with us. That there is a wonderful ancestry that goes on. So because they lived on the planet and tried to help it in certain points, they have more of an intimate connection with us, I think, than the Sirius is also involved. There's three races that are most intimate: the Arcturians, the Sirians, and the Pleiadians. It doesn't mean they're the only ones, but those are the most intimate.
Now, is there one that's more that is older than the others in those three? Like, who would be the most, or are they all kind of like the same age that they've been?
Yeah, when the Lyran expression came, it did manifest these different races pretty much at the same time. Yeah, so, and the history that goes back on it, I'm still learning about it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. So that's why I'm holding up some books sometimes, because my channeling, my specialty, and I think everybody has a specialty, was what is planet Earth going to look like after contact? What's the new education going to be like? What's new romance? I was more interested in that than I was in the whole history and how many races there are and all their different names and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of going into a different space about it. And I wanted to, one of the questions was, what's the new economy going to be like? So I wanted to talk about that. They do not have any physical form of money where they are. So I asked the question, and he said, first, we are a cooperative model of economics. We don't encourage competition in any way, shape, or form. We've already gone over that. We encourage cooperation between ourselves. Cooperation is a frictionless flow of energy and keeps the law of ease and grace intact as we continue our evolution towards the great I am presence. Flexibility is a large part of our economic system. There is no physical form of money as you have on your planet. Earthlings, I'm changing the word Earthlings to Earth humans because Earthlings sounds too talking down, but Earth humans are hypnotized by outside influences that has set up a competitive environment that creates duality in everything that you do. All your social structures are based on duality. The economy is no different. Duality is based on having two strands of DNA, which we will talk about later. It says it starts with others who have more and feel justified owning others through their own sense of what commerce should or shouldn't be. A male-dominated energy of mind has taken over your free will. Free commerce means there is no end to abundance throughout the entire universe. We work in small groups and exchange unlimited supply of energy to co-create whatever we need through thoughts and feelings. We work with each other, not against each other, to create and provide whatever we need without the need to own or manipulate each other.
You know what that sounds like, actually? That sounds
It's
like
not
the
social.
law of attraction.
Law of attraction. Yeah.
Manifestation, and thoughts become things, and
Yeah.
putting it out into the universe. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like manifestation.
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea that they have enough fertility within consciousness. Now, this is from within. This is not AI. This is not coming from a technological advancement outside of us. This is from the technology of consciousness, which we haven't even really gotten into that much on our planet. So we're still gaining fulfillment through technology outside of ourselves. So when we go inside of ourselves and they go in and they just think a thought and have a desire, they can manifest it. They call this Ritam in the Vedas in India, where you have a desire, you have a thought, and it just manifests. And you see a lot of the avatars had that, especially Jesus Christ. You know, he really was probably, in my opinion, he was the best example of that kind of energy. Of the fish, remember there was only a couple fish, and then there was 5,000 people that needed, and he multiplied the fish and the bread.
And you run out of wine, all you need is some water.
You know, I mean, raising the dead or whatever. He's being an example. And even when he said to his disciples, when he washed their feet and said, "All I do, ye shall do even more." So he's saying that we have that ability. That's our God-given right as human beings to be able to manifest at will what we need. Now, that's kind of a right to the heart of the goal of finding fulfillment in life, because what we do is when we're limited in our consciousness, we have to go outside of ourselves and depend on others, such as an international banking system, in order to fulfill our desires. So that's their outlook on abundance and money is really through light and love and being able to manifest things intimately. Even children, they don't have to go through the whole 9 months of pregnancy. A lot of women hearing this would love to hear that,
Now, in the book you write, in this book, the Pleiadians wanted me to get down to specifics. Which I thought was an interesting quote. But specifics of what exactly? Are those what
is the new economy going to look like?
So it's kind of like what those chapters are going to be about. We're going to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, you hear everybody in the New Age movement and they're talking about we're moving into this light, these higher frequencies, this higher dimension, where there's unconditional love. Okay, well, what does that look like? I mean, so economically, what it looks like is they want people to work in small family groups. It's gotten too large, life, too big of a government, too big of a medical system, too big. They say no more than 100 people in a group, in a family group in the future, and that we will barter with each other to a certain extent, but we'll be connected to higher technology that they're going to bring. So it's going to make it easier in that way. So there is this, once a group grows beyond 100, it's susceptible to ego manipulations, is my point. Okay.
Now, when you say group, are you specifically referring to a family, or what's the definition of a group?
It's love your neighbor as you love thyself. Okay, so you're bringing back the idea of your neighbors as a family group. No more than 100 of your neighbors are working together and helping each other fulfill their desires.
Okay, so it's more like a reduction of society itself. So, like, because when I hear group, I mean, how do you determine a nation? Because there's going to be nations that have more than 100 people. So I mean,
you split them up in family groups. You see. And so you have over how many millions of people are living in the United States? I forget. 300?
Probably get 300 million, maybe.
So they would all split up into groups of 100 and barter with each other and kind of help each other. So it's not gotten so big.
So like it becomes, so I'm going to use where I live as an example, New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire. And I live in the city of Manchester, and the city of Manchester probably has 100,000 people in it.
Right.
And so we're talking about reducing or drawing lines in areas of clumps of 100 people. I don't know, Valley Street between Maple and, that section of the street.
You don't want to get too intellectual about it because they're probably going to help us organize that whole thing.
But it just seems like that, to make it that self-managerial, or that level of self-governance, because ultimately that's what it sounds like it would become, that those 100 people would be self-governing each other. It sounds like then you'd have, if you have a disagreement with the next block over, same group of people, there's going to be that level of, I would think, I don't know, it sounds very dystopian.
Well, as I was saying before, you got to remember that this information is being channeled from a higher dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are earthbound here. They don't meditate. They don't do anything. They don't do anything to know what that feels like, that silence, that bliss. So it's hard for people to, they're analyzing it from the point of view of Earth 3D. And that can be very confusing. And it's almost, we're confused enough here on this planet. You know what I'm saying? Aren't we? The whole government's confused, if you haven't noticed. They're just trying to figure out, how do we negotiate with each other? How do we live with each other? But I think what they're basically saying is that if you have a group that grows beyond 100 people, it is susceptible to ego manipulation. So they're saying it's grown so much that nobody's accountable anymore. You look at the government, you look at religious institutions, everything's gotten so big that nobody seems to be accountable for anything. And then we find out deep, dark secrets. Child molestation in the Catholic Church, or yoga teachers doing things that they should be doing with their students, or the government using our money in certain ways that we didn't even know about, our organizations going on underneath. So if we keep the family group smaller, less of that happens because we're watching out for each other. It's not like we're always, looking at each other all the time, but that there is a sense and there is time to do that, because right now people are so dedicated to money, human beings.
Well, it's what I don't know necessarily say dedicated, but it's certainly a need that we're finding that we can't live without it. We can't eat without it.
But it's ruining the planet by being so, all of our time. Divorces are happening. Kids are growing up in very unbalanced environments. And that's the Pleiadians. The number one thing for a lot of the benevolent extraterrestrials, the children are the number one. That's where the gold is. So they want them to grow up with confidence and love and all that kind of nice stuff, and education, really big time knowledge. But it's just that here we're so caught up in earning a living and paying bills that we don't have time to love your neighbor. We have enough time to even say hello. Hi, how you doing today? But unless you're retired, do you really have time to say hello to anybody? You know what I mean? So that's human relationships, and we need that. So, I hope that.
Yeah, no. I've only got one more question before we get into the crux of the book and get into the fun stuff. But you do make mention of it in the first part, the first 20 pages. You do make mention of the Galactic Federation. And I would like to ask, can you talk a little bit about the Galactic Federation? What is it, and what civilizations actually make it up?
It's very, very large. You're talking about millions, literally, of billions of spaceships and millions of cultures that are involved in the universe in an galactic universal confederation. So that is an organization that basically tries to keep order in the universe, to be able to have cooperation, love and light, spirituality, high vibration in this government. It's a government of light. Now, we've been in quarantine, the planet Earth, for the last, I would say, 30 to 40,000 years. There are times when we had that connection to the intergalactic universal federation. Then we get disconnected sometimes. The disconnection comes from us losing our ability to go within, raise our vibration, whatever modality that you want to do that with. And then we lose things. So we go into what they call quarantine. So the answer to the question is just, it's a very unbounded, large, millions of cultures, thousands of cultures that are involved in this, in the whole government of the Intergalactic Federation.
Okay.
I read this book called World Project Evacuation. Look at that cover. Isn't that beautiful? This is channeled by Sister Tuella. Sister Tuella was in connection with Lord Ashtar of the Ashtar Command. That's what Lord Ashtar looks like. And Lord Ashtar is like the appointed secretary, especially in a military sense, by Christ. So they call him Sananda, Jesus Christ. So he's like the commander, and he appointed Ashtar to organize one of the people to organize the Intergalactic Federation. And
is he a Pleiadian?
He is above that. Now, the Pleiadians are in the sixth dimension.
Okay.
Their energy that Ashtar runs on is up in the Elohim light technologies, where they have Merkabah craft. Their spaceships are more like light, and they form envelopes of energy together. And that's how they form a spaceship.
So when we talk about Pleiadians, we're not necessarily talking about beings. We're talking about dimensional levels as well.
We're talking about both. Yeah. Basically what happens is the body, see the flesh body, what Lord Ashtar calls the molecular cellular shift is what we're going through. So we go from a very physical, dense body into a semi-flesh, semi-light body in the fifth dimension. In the sixth dimension, it's a more refined physical, etheric body. And then you get into the seventh dimension. That's where the ascended masters are. And that's where you're more getting into a form of light when you become a ascended master. And then it just gets more refined so that you're more Elohim, they call it. You're more light. You're more of a light being. This book by Dr. J.J. Hurtek, this is called The 64 Keys of Enoch. And this book goes through that whole idea of light beings. He goes on a journey with Enoch and Metatron. It's half of the book you don't even understand. You just read it and it kind of, but it's got this whole idea of, it's probably the best explanation I've seen about how the Elohim light beings, the angelic realms above God and all that, kind of operate in a certain way. So the higher you go, the more refined it gets, the physical world. That's basically the premise behind what I'm saying.
Okay.
The higher the frequency, the less physical it gets.
All right. So we talked about this a little bit the other day. We are definitely approaching a time of disclosure all around.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that we're getting close to is first contact. And
Yes.
I know that there are those who say that they've had their own experiences, personal contact. But when you say first contact, I'm assuming you're referring to the first mass contact, where most people are going to be made aware of, whether it's done in disclosure or in conjunction with a, lack of a better description, coming down, hear everybody first time, mass media. There's no mistaking it. Here they come, get the popcorn ready and the little flags to wave. This is the first one. Are we expecting to see, are the Pleiadians behind that? Are they the ones for the mass? All right. So that being said, the floor is yours. We're going to delve into that book right now. So let's go into that.
What a great question. I was thinking to myself that, I should be letting people know more that this is about a global connection to all the world leaders. This is because we've already had contact for so many years now, but it's been so hidden and secretive that a lot of people don't know. But this, you're right. Now I'm going to tell you that there are 4 individuals in the government on the Republican side now. This is on the Republican side that want UFO connections. Geez, I hope I shaved all right. Anyway, no, that they want to have disclosure of the files, UFO file. They are Josh Hawley of Missouri, Senator.
Yep. And I like him.
Yeah, I like him.
If you've seen how he interacts, and he's a fantastic overseer.
I like him a lot. Yeah. Him, Burchett, Republican of Tennessee, who was on the Oversight Committee, Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Okay. And now I just saw on News Nation, if you want to tune into News Nation on the weekend between 7 to 9 p.m., Natasha is the girl that does, there is information all the time on UFOs and all that kind of stuff. Anna Pauline Luna.
Yep. Anna Paulina Luna.
Right. Now, those four people right now, I feel, I'm making a prediction here, that sometime in July, August, September, around there, we may get a committee together to disclose the UFO files. Now, how much of the files will be disclosed is another issue, but they will be making a very large first step in that.
Well, it was just a couple of months ago where they had a hearing, and right out under oath in front of Congress, they were saying, yes, we have NHI, non-human intelligence, with us. They flat out said it. So it's close.
It's getting there, I mean, it's just a Roswell incident. It's been covered up 1947. Okay. So that's over 75 years, 77. So it is quite a long time. The dates that I want to give your viewers for UFO contact on a wide scale is being created by a minor grand trine in the skies. But the last week of June through November of this year, August being the most fertile, August 13th and the 25th are those important days up till September the 13th. We can even include September the 9th. This is in 2025. So that's the last week of June through November of 2025, August being the most fertile, and the days in August 13th and the 25th, up till September the 13th, with also including September the 9th. Then in 2026, June through December, July is the most fertile, and July 16th would be the day that would be special. January 1st to the 17th of 2027, it's not going 2027, 8th through August, also 2027, June being the most fertile, June 15th is the special date. And then the last dates are December the 26th till the end of 2027.
And these are for sightings.
These are for a major UFO contact that most leaders are going to be aware of. Most people are going to be asking, what's going on here? What is this all about? Now, whether that becomes, depending on the first contact specialists of these different races that are going to be making contact, depending on how they feel we're reacting, will determine how far they want to go with this. If they want to be on TV and have a communication with leaders of the free world in the areas of politics, religion, science, etc., to ask questions as to what's going on with this. So at least that's some dates that your viewers can,
write down on their calendar and see.
Yeah, hopefully, because we've had dates before since Sister Tuella came out with Project World Evacuation, this book. This was, I think, in 1984, if I'm not mistaken. So they have the ability, if there is an emergency, a real big, huge shift on the polar axis or something, they can evacuate a planet in 15 minutes.
That's interesting you say that. That is just fascinating to fathom, that if we get to a point where we need to get off the planet, that that's just amazing. And it makes me wonder, how do they do it? Is it literally just sucking people off without even knowing? So that in a way, people could see that as like, are we talking about a rapture?
See, yes, we are. Yes, see that? The beams of people. Yep.
So, it's an interesting concept when you go back to the Bible, even though the Bible doesn't specifically use the word rapture.
That's
but
right.
You hear all these other things, but in essence, that's kind of what it is. So are we being, let's say, for example, we don't know that the Earth is going to go through some traumatic thing, but are they able to know that the Earth is due to receive some kind of traumatic thing or asteroid thing or unexpected impact or unexpected cataclysm. Is that something they're aware of and we're not? That way it's all of a sudden 1 minute we're here, the next minute we're somewhere else?
Yeah. That can happen. They do have technologies we're talking about. Elohim consciousness light technology that can, like Star Trek, they can beam you up, and kind of thing. But yeah, it is we weren't supposed to be here right now, is my point. The Project World Evacuation was supposed to happen where people were supposed to be lifted up off the planet. But because the yogis from India came over and started the whole meditation and yoga and all that, it raised the vibration enough. So that project is on standby now. It's not necessary. So that's why. So we're very thankful that, we got a break, from a major catastrophe. Prophecy is not written in stone. Okay. The future is always in motion. So it's very difficult to believe when prophecies are made, 2,000 years ago or 3,000, whatever, they may change along the way. The chessboard changes. It may look a certain way in the prophecy at the time that it's done, but we have free will. So we
have free will, but our free will can't necessarily prevent a cataclysm.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, with our own actions and our own thoughts, our karma. Even Jesus, Lord Krishna, Buddha, they all talked about karma. But Jesus, he said, what you give to others will be given unto you. What you take from others will be taken from you. He's talking about the law of karma. And karma means action. So if we have bad karma that we need to process because we did bad things, then we have the disturbance in the laws of nature. The laws of nature react. It's almost like hurricanes and stuff like that. They're a culmination of negative energy that's coming back at us from the energy that we put out into the environment. It collects, the stress collects in the environment, and Mother Nature has a nervous breakdown at that point because we're putting too much negative thinking and feelings and thoughts and it backfires on us.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, and this is where this question comes from. So let's say there's one person who's the most positive thinking person ever, just happens to live in an area where the whole city is all negative. So the group think karma, this poor guy or poor woman is stuck in the middle of that. So those people who are not negative thinkers are going to still be subject to the group karma.
Yeah, because
that kind of sucks.
Well, I know it, doesn't it? I experienced that with my own biological family. We're individual waves on the same ocean. We're part of the same ocean of consciousness. So if the wind blows and the waves go to the right, most likely the rest of the waves are going to go to the right. In quantum physics, they talk about the 1% effect. That, for instance, if you're making popcorn, 1% of the popcorn starts popping and then the rest follow all of a sudden. 1% of the water starts to boil, and then the rest starts to boil. So this is called the 1% effect in physics. And so what you're saying is, yes, there is a certain vulnerability, even if you're positive. And I'll even say this, that your bloodline, your ancestry, your DNA is very intimate. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that because they've had some really less than positive experiences with their parents or, siblings. But Lord Krishna said that if one person would become enlightened in a family, that it would automatically enlighten the rest of the bloodline, regardless if they believe or do yoga, which I think is very interesting when you think about your ancestry and how when I meditate, my mother, like your mother, recently passed away in May of 2023. Even though I wasn't a wealthy son that could provide and help his mother as much as he wanted to in her later days, all of my meditation has built a celestial castle for her on the other side.
Okay. All right.
Coincided to make parallel realities are happening. So what you're doing, we shouldn't underestimate. I even heard somebody recently, a guru, Pandit Ravi Shankar. He's the founder of the Art of Living Foundation. And, he said something very interesting when someone said, well, nothing's happening in my meditation. Isn't that a waste of time? He said, no, that meditation is going to your ancestors. That's why nothing happened. Now so the intimacy in the DNA is very intimate in your ancestral line. What affects you and your thoughts affects everybody else. Now, that's kind of scary when you think about it. If you have an alcoholic in the family or a drug addict or a bipolar person, wow, they're affecting but they do,
Well, yeah, and in the ways that some people may not want that effect to be, especially if they're in your family, you want the best for them regardless. And if they're not able to get there, no matter all of the things that you do, it does pose an interesting thing, though, especially for those who succumb to those issues, whether they're OD or whether they cirrhosis of liver or whatever the reason, whatever illness comes from that, is then one in that thought of the meditation for them. If they're not able to get there and then they succumb to that, is that as a result of the peace that the meditation is causing? How do you heal that? You heal that by removing them away from it. And if they physically can't do it on their own, then it's like the universe is doing it to them or for them to prevent them from continuing to destroy themselves. But in essence, they're destroying themselves as it is. It's a weird paradox, because the karma is acting out what they can't escape from. Because one could say the karma of them doing those, let's take a drug overdose, for example, the karma of them going to that level is them no longer being here with us anymore. Karma took that. But at the same time, that karma is ultimately giving them peace from what they were self-medicating in the first place. It's just a really weird and twisted.
And we're learning lessons. God helps those who helps themselves. That's a lesson. And some people do not want to help themselves. They have addictions. My father was like that. He was a full-blown alcoholic, And so we're all not perfect. That's obvious, But we are perfection and the deepest part of being.
Which was an interesting quote you also said and I'm paraphrasing here, that there's a line in there that says, I took it to read, the quest of perfection is ever unfolding.
It is. There is no end to the unfoldment.
But you never really get to perfection.
You are it already.
Right, but
Jeff, you keep rediscovering it on different levels. Now, the non-dualistic movement gets to what you're getting at. We're already perfection. We don't have to go. We don't have a goal we're reaching to become enlightened and all that. What I'm saying to them is it's a paradoxical dance that goes on between unmanifest being perfection to manifestation of growth on an evolutionary way in time and space, non-time and space, time and space. Waking, dreaming, and sleeping states of consciousness are always changing. Well, it's hard to find total fulfillment with those three states. So when you transcend the whole creation, you're getting to a point of perfection that is non-duality. It's an impersonal aspect of God, is what it is. So you have the male and the female aspects, but then you got this great I am presence is just pure energy that physicists are now finding as they went atomic, subatomic, and they went down into the atom, and they find that the center of the atom is nothing but empty space. It's pure potentiality. That is the great I am presence continuing to manifest things in the material world, in the time and space mode. So both of them are together. Both of them are together. I think it's kind of egotistical to think that you could be in a three-dimensional body with two strands of DNA and claim to be awake and enlightened. I just don't buy it. If you're 150 years old and you look like you're 30, I want to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the gurus that came from India, even though they had so much wonderful knowledge, because India is probably the most philosophical country in the world at this point, even though they came over, if everybody's noticed now, of course, this was 1958. I think that even Maharishi Mahesh, when he initiated people into trans-level meditation, that's when it started. That was the very first. But all the other gurus like Yogananda, and there was Muktananda, and there was all these different, gurus. They didn't live that long. They still died by the age of their early 80s or even 90 or 91. And because of the two-strand of DNA, because the DNA has been so manipulated by other extraterrestrial races, we have to repair that in order to. The average age for the ET civilizations is 300 to 1,000, and that's in the first 6 dimensions. And the Pleiadians, I believe, their average age is up to 700 years old.
All right. So the Pleiadians are going to come. They're going to introduce themselves.
And a lot of others, too, but they'll be the first.
And those are the ones that, are those the ones that we need to pay the most attention to?
Not necessarily, but they're the ones that we'll feel most comfortable with. They look like us. Generally, they're the Nordic-looking extraterrestrials, blonde hair, light skin, blue eyes. Not all of them are Nordic-looking, but they're the ones that we will be seeing and they could be fairly tall too, probably 6 feet to 7 feet tall. They will be able to relate to them the most. We have to feel comfortable in some way. The other thing that I put in my book that they're going to do, in which I would like to be a part of, is a humanitarian project. In order to gain trust with people, they will take thousands of ships into different areas that are very poverty-stricken. The slums of India, Philippines, Africa, South America, Central America, or anywhere in between, where people don't even have a sanitary place to go to the bathroom. They need food, they need medical supplies. By them coming with thousands of ships and helping organize that, human beings feel, wow, they're really helping us. I mean, they're nice. They're not out for war or to hurt us in any way. And then there's this high technology. They have the Elohim light technology. The Elohim consciousness light technology. Like I see a ship going over these different areas that are very polluted. They can beam down this light and it disinfects the whole area of viruses or germs or bacteria or anything, and cleans it up very quickly. They can clean up all the pollution on this planet in about 3 months with the technology that they have. So this is a benevolent, they want to help us get from step 1 to step 2 in the evolutionary process of planet Earth.
If they can do these things, why haven't they done
with that? Remember at the beginning of the video, I said 4 reasons why they cannot do it. Free will. They can do it if a planet is a threat to itself or its own survival, or if it's a threat to other.
For the last 10 years, we've been told that the global warming was going to be a threat to our survival. And here we are 10 years later. And here when I was in high school, we were global warming. We're going to have a second ice age. And now the global warming is everything's going to melt. And now it seems to go every 10 years. And it's turned into a money-making scheme, let alone actual truth that we're doing tremendous damage to our planet. And
when they come with the new technologies, it's all over with in regards to any fear of something very negative happening with the environment or the planet itself.
When we were doing nuclear testing, and when because you had stated to me in another that if we ever launched a nuclear weapon, that they wouldn't allow it. But yet they allowed Hiroshima, they allowed Nagasaki.
That's correct.
And then the hundreds of nuclear tests across the continent before. So why not then, but going in the future?
They still had the law of free will. They could not do anything with that. They could not interfere. But after that happened, unfortunately, they got the okay that this is it. It's over with. We cannot allow them to use this
for
anymore.
That particular method of
World War II would be the last expression of atomic energy used in a negative way on a grand scale. But they will allow small things like a tsunami hitting a nuclear power plant in Japan, for instance.
Right. Well, that's natural in a
way. And then they try, from what I understand, they do try to maintain the radioactive uranium stuff so it doesn't spread, so it kills so many people.
Is there technology knowledge or technological knowledge that they can actually give to us to make that method of energy, safer and cleaner? Because if we're, as of right now, that is the most cleanest and safest, ironically,
Yeah.
in order to serve the energy needs for society as large as it is right now, especially with the growth of AI and the energy power that's going to be necessary to support that.
Yes, what they call free energy.
Right, which I believe exists because Tesla knew about it, but it's been suppressed. And are they going to assist in actually allowing that to come out?
I'm sorry, what was that question
Are
again?
they going to be able to allow that? Are we going to get to that point where that previously suppressed that we already knew had access to will actually see the light of day?
We're going to open up, once the grand contact happens, it's going to open up a flood of doors at every level.
Do we have any idea when that will be, the grand contact?
Well, that's what the first contact, which was at the dates that I gave earlier.
Okay.
That those dates.
Is that going to force the ultimate disclosure, or is that going to be the one that literally opens the doors to?
Yeah, it'll even if they try to stop it, but it'll be big enough to raise a lot of eyebrows. There'll be some people that will process the experience in a really less than out of fear. They just don't. Let's face it, there are some people that have a hard time even leaving their apartment or their home. They have so much fear of what the world is like. They're going to have a harder time. I think 50% of the planet is ready for something.
I think more than that, actually. Excuse me. I think a heck of a lot more than that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. People's values are certainly, most people on this planet, they're not open to. I've experienced this for 46 years of meditation. Most people, I don't have time to meditate. There's not enough commitment. Terrorist groups are more committed to killing people than we are.
And thank God they live mostly over there. But
they don't wake up in the morning and go, I don't feel like shooting somebody today. They really want to shoot somebody. We need to have that kind of passion for spiritual techniques, meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, whatever you can do to raise your vibrational frequency so that there's enough higher vibration that offsets the less than positive frequencies that are going on with people's thoughts and attitudes. So I'm giving 50%. I've even heard somebody say 95%. I don't believe that.
You know what?
I would be surprised.
Let them come up there and then make people say, look, there it is. Whether you take it from here or not and you still don't get it, you're on your own. But there they are. Here they are. This is what's going on. Because I'm ready for it. At this point, I'm ready for it,
Yeah.
All right. So they come down. They're known. Did they prioritize, what would be the first thing we can expect once they're here? And once do they have an agenda as far as the top 5 things that they that will be accomplished, or what we can expect to see once that is made?
Well, I think the very first thing is just knowledge, education about, and you're going to have the leaders in the fields of politics, religion, science, especially, all asking questions, and it's going to come from everybody, and they're going to have this dialogue that goes on, helping us to understand how they live. It's going to be fascinating because there's several different races that are going to make contact, and they're all different in their sort of, like we are. Our planet has differences. Example would be Bashar, who is very well known over the last 40 years, channeled through Daryl Anka. The Sassani culture, the Sassani culture, they all live on their spaceships, and they don't have a development on their planet in terms of city life and pollution. So if they're living on their spaceships, they visit their planet from the spaceships, but they live on the spaceships. You see, they don't live on their planet.
How big are these?
They can be very large. As a matter of fact, Burchett of Tennessee, the Republican, this is recently now, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, said on News Nation that an admiral who he respects said that they had seen a UFO under the ocean that was as large as a football field. and it was moving, I think, 100 miles an hour. Our stuff only moves 40 miles an hour with the submarines and all that. So that was coming from, a conservative political leader on the Oversight Committee. Yeah, we've heard there could be some that are as big as a planet, literally big as a planet.
There are some who say the moon.
Remember the movie, Third something of, what was it? It was years ago that it...
was it a movie or a show? Oh, Close Encounters of the
Third Kind. That is something that the mothership, when it landed, and then how these other ships that were, that is a true depiction of what it is like for them.
Now, was that because there was a Frenchman who was depicted in that movie, who's actually real. I don't remember his name, but the aliens that were depicted in that are the ones that are a cross between, well, they included both. They had some of the small grays with the big heads, slender bodies, big heads, and big eyes. But then there was a taller, more slender master alien, if you will, that came out that was very peaceful.
Right.
And we all know that Hollywood, there's little elements of truth. I really do believe this. I really do believe this. There's a slow disclosure comes in every form of some of these movies that come out to prepare us. I really do believe that.
I believe that too. Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, are those representative of one of the races that we're discussing today, the Pleiadians, or one of the other in Sirius, but are benevolent, and we're seeing them, all of those missing, like fighter pilots were being re-released, and then they were transferring people, like, hey, now it's your turn to go, and which made people aware of the government cooperation.
Yeah, that's like the Bermuda Triangle where there's missing planes and people. Also, there is called now the Alaska Triangle. There's an area in Alaska where there's 16,000 people have been missing since
The Fourth Kind. The Fourth Kind was a movie that was about that. And it was supposed to be, true footage. And the way they created it very similar to the Blair Witch Project in that style of filmmaking. And it was a fascinating, thought-provoking film based on true fact that there were still 16,000 missing residents of this small town or this area of Alaska.
Yeah.
And but they led to regression therapy, but that took a negative connotation where those involved were more of a not so benevolent or not so kind race. Right, and it's just really intriguing.
Well, the programs, the protocol of this abduction cases, that program is slowing down and it's being shut down because it is less than positive. The positive aspect is creating hybrids, a hybrid race that has a level of intelligence that, they're about 3,000 years ahead of us, I think, some of these races, and that are doing the hybrids, the Zeta Reticuli, the grays. And so, like, for instance, Whitley Strieber, who's put out a book called Communion. Remember years back he put it out? He actually talks about his experiences with the abduction cases. I saw him live a few months ago on an interview, and he said that they smell like ammonia and they've taken a lot of semen from him. So this is an invasive type of race that is so bent on trying to rediscover themselves because they got into a situation where the DNA in themselves was compromised. Mm-hmm. Couldn't have babies anymore. The heads were too big. So they couldn't reproduce anymore. So now they're trying to reproduce through cloning and test tubes and all that kind of stuff. But they need our DNA samples in order to get back to that. So now you got the hybrids. That's the hybrid races. Okay.
So, but I guess my question then with that is like, well, here we have the Galactic Federation that oversees, I'm assuming, all of these agencies or all of these civilizations. That's kind of the United Nations, if you will, of space. And one would think that why are they allowing this to happen? I mean, I get we're not on the same level of growth that they're at, but shouldn't that still say, look, that kind of stuff is off limits?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would imagine a lot of people have that question. I think that there may have been an arrangement on a very deep level of their consciousness in order to experience that, to help this. They made an agreement to help on some level to incarnate here on Earth a regular human flesh body DNA in order to transfer over to that group. But that program is being slowly shut down over the last 20, 30 years. It's not happening as much as it happens. But the Greys, if you want to use a biblical kind of religion, it is more Setonian. It's invasive, and they recognize that the free will clauses, they have to let a planet and its experiences go through a certain point of evolution, and then they can come in and try when we're ready for the next, which we are right now, graduation period. I think they still have the same reason they let go of a lot of things that we have here on Earth as humans, raping a child, what do you call trafficking and all that kind of stuff. That's still bad, and that's still allowed by them. So the free will clause.
Well, that's not interspecial.
No,
that's human activity.
Well,
to be able to police our own, we can't.
We're partly extraterrestrial. I mean, we're part of the
yeah. But I mean, let's say for the sake of argument, we're talking about humans doing bad things to humans, and which is bad in general. We can control that. We can punish that. We can capture and believe that. I capture so and so. He did that, and he's now being tried, and boom, he's jury of his peer, however, and done. But when you have extraterrestrials coming and doing this to people who have no defense to them,
but that's not the majority.
No, it's not the majority, but regardless, there's no good time for that. Like, there's no good acceptable amount that should happen.
A lot of people feel that our government made the agreement. President Eisenhower, I think it was 1954, made an agreement with them and signed the agreement that he would allow them to do these experiments on us because he wanted the technology that they have so we could become more powerful than China and Russia and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of countries, we're partly at fault for allowing through our own free will, our leaders.
Well, the leaders' free will, then that free will should have been, you can come and take Eisenhower. I'm allowing that to happen. Take Eisenhower, because I know those innocent people weren't free willing their.
Reviewers, I'm not saying that could be true. I'm just saying that's what I've heard. These are the kind of things along the way. I'm not a real person I'm not who really gets really into the conspiracy theory, because the reason why I don't is because
it's interesting to talk about. It's an interesting thought
because if we get too attached to the conspiracies, it feels even dark. It's almost like you want to go in a room and it's dark. Just flip the switch on and it brings some light into this situation. Don't keep focusing on this conspiracy. I see this on YouTube all the time. People get, the deep cabal, the white hat group, the black group, this group, it gets so negative.
Negative, but it's an interesting thing to think about, because here we are talking about an extraterrestrial civilization that in and of itself, some would say is a conspiracy. That's not true.
But whatever you put your attention on grows. So we should be focused on the more benevolent. See how benevolent that is. Beautiful. Benevolent beings that want to help us. The Greys are getting finished. They got the most, they'll go another 100. They're going to be transferred over to the new Earth. I believe there's one or two more planets that are just like this, the environment, that people are going to be transported on either through high technology, light technologies. In other words, the international banking families, if they could just take them like at 2 a.m. and transfer them over to another planet.
That would be nice.
Without them even knowing about it.
That would be nice.
They just wake up and they think they go on like, it's not like it's this big judgment and all this big changes and there's got to be an earthquake and I don't kill. It doesn't have that. It's very simple. They just get transferred so that we can take the beings, the souls that want to raise their frequency, and they've been working at it for a long time. They want to take them all to the next level with this planet into the 5th dimension.
It's interesting that there's been in the news a new planet discovered the same size, maybe a little bit bigger than Earth, a star 4 light years away. Ironically, they're calling it the second Earth or the new Earth, but it's huge. But that's really interesting that.
Yeah.
it would be nice to wake up, take them, and let us go where we're going.
The human mind cannot fathom the infinite. I use the word God comfortably because I know that it's been misused and it's kind of has reference, but God is a huge energy.
God is everything.
You know what I'm saying? So it's so massive and so just beyond our imagination almost. I mean, it's like God could be creating 1,000 new planets in a certain part of the universe that we don't even know about. At the same time, knows exactly how to keep the environment at a certain level here so that we can continue our existence. I mean, this is a multifaceted, multidimensional energy that is just unbounded in its expression, But yeah, there could be that possibility. I think that the grays, Zeta Reticuli, could be no longer attracted to us because they don't vibrate anymore. They can't even make the adjustment from the parallel reality that they come from in order to do the abduction case anymore, because they're in the fourth dimension. And when you're vibrating in the fifth or the sixth, like when I meditate, I go to the sixth dimension, the upper sixth. They're not attracted to that. They can't fool you, with their abilities. So they're going to be, their work is going to be.
It's interesting because that's kind of like government now and the powers that be. You can't fool them anymore. You can't fool the population anymore. Once they wake up, they're awake.
Yeah.
We know where the misdirection's coming.
Yeah, they're discerning.
Try to take another rabbit out of that hat. We know that it's not going to possible. All right. So what are you most looking forward to once this starts? Like, what are you looking most forward to?
The thing I'm looking most forward to is that people are finally becoming open-minded and serious about the topic, that the social hypnosis doesn't weigh them down anymore, that they're not open. In other words, we're not hearing it from our leaders. Politics, religion, science, enough. Science maybe a little bit more because they're getting more esoteric. We don't hear it enough from our leaders in order for us to even feel comfortable accepting something that is different than what we normally experience. So my very first thing for me is that people are finally opening up and looking at life in a much wider lens of their consciousness than they did before so that we can grow. When we encourage change, we grow. People don't like to change on this planet. What we accomplish in 100 years, they can accomplish in a couple of weeks. That's how fast life is.
I want to challenge you on that statement. People don't like to grow. I think people are afraid to. People are very comfortable in what they know. And I think that there's a fear that's associated with, well, if I do that, I have no guarantee that it's going to get better or worse. So I'm going to stay where I am.
Exactly.
And I think, I know for me, I mean,
that's right.
I do what I know is going to yield a certain result. And I'm very hesitant to stop and go in a different direction because I have no idea how it's going to go.
Fear outweighs the move most of the time, even in relationships. But why do they stay in that relationship? It's so abusive. Fear generally outweighs the move in order to grow. So you are correct that a lot of people are afraid to do even the lowest things to expand their company. But we don't have enlightened leadership on the planet. Doctors, if I tell somebody to take some vitamins and minerals, I got a doctor that can take care of this. He's going to cut me off my shoulder hurts. I would say, take this. No, I got a physician that he's the best around. Because we don't have medical doctors as the leaders say. If a medical doctor told somebody to take this vitamin, this mineral, they would just start popping them, right? But because we don't have that leadership, that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most. That's the answer to the question, that we have enlightened leadership that can help human beings grow into more being human, heal the DNA. The DNA strand should be at 12 strands up to the sixth dimension. They go up to 24 strands. Then you're having holographic experiences. You're experiencing, and then the romance that they have on this plate is wow.
But how does that change? I mean, how do you take a 2-strand DNA and all of a sudden that multiplies to 3-strand or 6-strand?
how does it, with Elohim consciousness, light technology, and sound, they have the ability to fluctuate the megahertz, the cycles per minute speed in order to go into the physiology and help to add or subtract chromosomes that have been subtracted by the Zeta Reticuli and other groups like the Anunnaki and all that. They manipulated the genetics.
Manipulated to where they're really gone, or they're just asleep and they need to be reactivated in order, like, is it already within us?
I think they're asleep and need to be reactivated. I think you're right. As a matter of fact, as you mentioned that, molecular scientists have found that a large percentage of our two-strand DNA, they're calling it junk DNA. It's not active. They don't know what is it for. They haven't figured it out yet. So even with our own limited two strands, that's not 100% active either.
Right. And they said, I heard something too. I was scrolling on YouTube and I saw there was someone talking about that they were able to upload binary code to DNA and then download that same code so it can actually be used in storage as, programmable and like crystal. Crystal is capable of receiving and transmitting information.
That's
DNA
correct.
the same way.
That's correct. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So they did show me when I asked them about this that they said when you go to the beach, this is Aim, when you go to the beach, those clear jellyfish that you see washing up, those can be activated. They're almost in a state. They can activate it so that there's these implants. They're soft, jelly-like implants that can be just a couple parts of the body. And then when they shoot rays into that, some of the light technology and sound technology, it helps to create the environment to heal the DNA and create the strands of DNA. Now, there's a lot of people out there saying they're downloading light codes now, that we're getting upgraded DNA from the sun, and all this kind of. It's great information, but I still want to see somebody with a birth certificate that says they're 150 and they look like they're 30. I want to see miracles. I want to see, Reiki and all the healing arts. They're wonderful. They work, but they don't cure a lot of this, like cancer and all that. I don't see that. I mean, they help activate a situation in the immune system and its body. But I want what we're going to be getting. Even what we're going to be getting is going to make Elon Musk look like a child playing with toys because it's so advanced. I just read that the Pleiadians with their beam ships, even though they're over 400 and something light years away, they can travel to our planet in 7 hours. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, we take on our
planet.
When
you're beings of light, then it would go to, I would think, make sense that, you can, for the lack of a better word, beings of an eye.
Like Star Trek and Star Wars, or they say they're going to go into hyperdrive, and then we're in another reality. That's what's going on. The wormholes and all that kind of stuff. They know how to work those things pretty well,
Now, do you believe that the technology that we may be actually waiting to actually receive, is it possible that that the powers that be already have access to that? Like we talked briefly about, the 0 point energy and stuff like that, but the other technology that's there, I mean, we've been cooperating with civilizations for decades. Is it possible that we already have it? We just don't have the permission to release it?
Yeah, we have some of it, but most of it's coming from Zeta Reticuli.
Okay, so it's not necessarily the Pleiadians. They're playing a different role here.
Yeah, it's not a part of the Intergalactic Federation of worlds where they can take the Elohim consciousness that they have in the upper 7th to 12th dimension, and they're channeling it they're channeling it down into the other races in the 6th to 5th, so that we can get some of that on our own level of awareness and how to deal with it. But I think the Sasani culture, as Sasani, I think Bashar talks about, Daryl Anka channels him. He did say that they're about 3,000 years ahead of us technologically. But then there are other races that are 10,000 years ahead of us and other races that are 1,000,000 years ahead of us. So I think they all work together and they download. At a certain point, your computer can only handle a certain, 8.0 version of
Yep.
Microsoft. Then you go up because now the computer and the hard drive has been changed. That's the way it's going to work step by step. And so that we evolve. The nice thing is once we start having contact and start evolving, then things just get better and better from there. And a lot of the negativity that's going on with everything in life will be minimized to a great extent. And people will want to. One of the things that they do when they have romance too is they call a neurophysiological climax. I want to talk about this because this hasn't been mentioned by a lot of the channelers, is that we have 85 to 100 billion neurons in our brain, and they have trillions of pathways throughout the neurophysiology, the human nervous system. They have the ability to activate those neurons, and they have the experience called the fountain of light. Now, this is a very intense. I have this experience not with somebody else, I'm talking about romantically, but with my own self. I have this experience maybe half a dozen times a year where you get tingling in the brain and it's so intense that it's this cosmic ecstasy experience of bliss. It's so bliss that runners get a runner's high, or musicians can get it. Maybe somebody's singing a song and they reach a certain point and they get this tingling that goes on. But they have the ability to kind of be like this, let's say in romance, and transfer it so that they're getting really, it's like an extra buzz, but it already is happening within self for them. So that's something that people can look forward to, is more of the climax coming in neurophysiology, heart and upper chakras experience rather than genitalia. They don't have any genitalia. And they'd shown me, Aim, when I asked him, he keeps showing me this all the time. I see this all the time, is him sitting in a recliner position, floating in space and receiving lunar rays or sun rays, solar rays, as their main diet, as they refine and go up on the levels in the Pleiadian culture, because he's up there. So it's like they have these little ducts, these little indentations in the feet, in the thighs, the lower abdomen, the chest, and in the third eye, where they absorb. It takes about a half an hour when they need to eat, when they need to absorb.
But don't be telling me this, Lou. Don't tell me that as a foodie I can't enjoy really good solid food anymore, and it's all going to be on light rays. I don't do light food. You know what I'm saying?
Feel after
No,
you eat.
Unless it tastes like some good ribs, I don't want no light rays.
You're not with us. We're going to put you on another planet.
Yeah. So there are a total of how many phases? 4?
4 phases. Yeah, the purification phase, you could say the last 30,000 years we've been going through a purification phase.
You said we were in quarantine as a planet. Do we know why we were put in quarantine?
Because we lost our connection to the Intergalactic Federation by losing connection with ourselves and pushing bliss away, pushing God away from us in our own selves. We end up being cut off from because we're not behaving. We're just, we're going off in a direction that is so negative. And
so are we the same people just kept coming back? Like, is that the reason why we're here on Earth? Like, if 30,000 plus years ago, we were pushed away from that and quarantine, and we just keep coming back as people. Are we those initial people, and that we're just keep coming back to get out of that?
Now you're getting to what they call the volunteers. And in the original core group, 144,000, I was a part of that. That started 6 million years ago to try and help this planet evolve step by step. And then you have periods where it's up and down. But getting to your question, once you evolve into the 5th dimension, in other words, your physical body passes away and you've learned most of your lessons on planet Earth, you're at a 5th dimension. You do not have to reincarnate back on Earth. You volunteer to come back here. You don't
How do
have,
we know? Like, how can I find out if I've volunteered to come back here or if I've
well,
reincarnated?
if you have a reputable, if you feel a psychic or somebody that can help you, there's different characteristics. Some people feel like this isn't their real home. Some people's blood type is different. Some people have talents in music and all that kind of thing. There are different ways that you can. I don't like that you're making a judgment, but everybody is perfection. But it's just that some people have developed certain abilities, maybe more than others, but everybody's is that perfection. But the volunteers, we have the gifts of insight, wisdom, and discernment. That's the thing that we have more than other people. We have more elbow room with karma. We have what's called a law of grace period, where as long as we're doing our dharma and we're making, decisions that are evolutionary, something like 49 or 51%, I forget, of our karma is automatically erased because we volunteered to come here. We volunteered to come here. So when they didn't have that law of grace, Saint Germain went to the karmic court and said, we send the volunteers down to earth and they're getting all caught up in the karma, getting weighted down, and they're becoming ineffective. We have this, so they made up this law of grace that says if you're doing your dharma and you're in alignment with, your life and purpose, you would have 49%, I forget, or 51% of your karma is automatically. So we have more elbow room. People who are volunteers, they don't have that elbow room. They either start meditating or doing something to raise the vibration and get off the wheel of karma, or they really get stuck here. And and these are the people that they're weak. They can't get over their addictions. They make everybody else's life miserable. An alcoholic or a drug addict, they come in, they ruin their families, they ruin their marriages. They're a constant problem is what they are, and we have compassion for them. But at some point they got to realize the mistakes they make and try to get therapy or something and start meditating or doing something to help out. Otherwise, they're very bound by the karma, their lessons. They get very attached to the lessons.
Well, I don't feel like I come from outer space, but I do feel like there's some things that I feel like I feel like I'm in the wrong time zone, the wrong timeline. Like I feel I would have done much better in, like, I don't know, 30s or 50s or 1800s or something along those lines.
But
It just don't feel like I belong here. It just feels like there's an intellectual level of something's off.
Like that. You probably, even you're interested in this stuff, and even that is saying that you're a light worker. I mean, light workers, you wouldn't even be open to any conversation here about extraterrestrials or anything that far out.
Well, I think that stems from a basic feeling that we can't go through life with a closed mind. You can't learn anything if all you believe is what you believe. And you can't be intellectually honest in life in general unless you allow yourself to have information from everywhere. And so I believe it's more or less not necessarily the interest in the topic, because I can talk about anything and I'll listen to all sides of every topic, because every topic, regardless of the subject matter, deserves that kind of respect, like you would any other person. You can't speak on anything if you're going to speak on it only at one level and not care about what the other side, because there is no such thing as a black and white issue. Everything is gray. And if you don't take the time to learn about the intricacies of what makes a subject, and from everybody's perspective, because there's so many different eyesights and everybody sees things the same, not the same way, but they're seeing what they see as their truth. Everybody sees that same level of truth. And in that is the totality of that truth. It's like witness testimony is so important. You have to get as much of it as you can to get a clearer picture, or the clearest picture. And so that's where that premise comes from. Like, I don't believe there was enough evidence to say that there isn't any aliens, nor do I believe there's enough evidence to say that there is. But at the same time, there's certainly not enough to say that there's nothing. And for us to believe we're the only ones is very, very egotistical and very just not right. Who the hell do we think we are if we think we're all that in the bag of chips? We're not, And to humble ourselves to the point where, yeah, really below everything else, the only thing we're certain of is who we are as an individual. And hell, some people don't even know that.
And a lot of this is based on genetics, the DNA strands and all that, that we can only be aware of so much. Knowledge is structured in consciousness. If we're only getting waking, dreaming, sleeping, time and space consciousness, the genetics needs to support more awareness. If you got 2 strands of DNA, well, maybe you have 3 strands, you got 4 strands, have maybe more awareness genetically. Your physiology and your mind are intimate.
Right.
So,
okay. So going forward, we've talked about the new sort of intellectual intimacy, for lack of a better phrase. It is a family show, but I figured that was an easier way to actually describe that level of orgasm. It's all about the intellectual and up there where it matters, because ultimately,
because our DNA supports a human animal expression of life. I mean, when you look out of life, everybody would agree with me. War is so animalistic. I mean, to create wars and all that kind of stuff. So when we increase the strands of DNA, we will be moving into a human divine expression of DNA, And there's nothing wrong with what we do now. It's just this.
But it's simplistic, and it's like it serves a purpose. Like, we're here, and that act serves a purpose, primarily to quote the Bible, begot family. We're going to go do that to begot family.
Absolutely.
It would make sense that as you elevate yourself on a spiritual level, in a dimensional level, that same joy or pleasure would be derived from other ways. Like I can laugh myself silly with a dear friend of mine, and there's nothing else like it. It might as well be an orgasm. There's nothing else like it. And when you can get to that level of, because that is a level of intimacy.
It is.
When you are that in tune with someone, to be able to just have all of that.
When you're blissed out and you're having this experience, they're already blissed out inside.
Right.
But they're not.
And that's the most non-physical aspect there.
In relationships, they're not looking for another person to fill in a hole there. You see? There's no codependency. So you're so blissed out, but you're just so blissed that you want to share the bliss with someone. That's a different angle than I really need somebody to fill my loneliness or to fill my, whatever desires that you have.
Well, sometimes it's not even about get that feeling. Sometimes it's about getting the feeling of just that you get from laughing so hard. And that individual is going to get you on that level, and that you're going to feed off each other to the point where it just develops and develops and develops, and then bam.
Yes.
And there's nothing.
You're saying basically is that you can still have peak experiences in different situations, not just romantically.
Right.
Yeah, that's
right. It diminishes. It's like you don't need to have that, because it's all about, it's a same, you can never get enough of that feeling.
Yeah.
And you can have that feeling in public, and people will look at you like, what the hell? Perfect example. Me and my best friend, we, a couple of years ago, we were walking in the Bath and Body Works, go figure, in the mall. And we're standing in the mall, just killing ourselves in hysterics, holding these 2 things of, I don't know what the heck we were, or what even stemmed. I couldn't even tell you going forward, but for at least 20 minutes. And we're just giggling, losing our funny and crying and laughing, hurting ourselves. And everybody's just like, and like, what's going on? And it's like, you want to leave out, and they're leaving. It's like, I want what they're having. It's just like,
right, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if the next question was how education will be implemented.
We could go, that's fine. However we go,
he says here, advanced technologies will set up a wireless educational program. Everyone will have access to computer technologies that allow a free flow of worldwide education. At the touch of a remote button, you'll be able to tune into different classes through advanced video conferencing tools to create a 3D classroom experience. And if the student is in their first year of college, they will choose the level of education in a certain field of study. At the push of a button, they can find professors in any university that is providing the knowledge necessary to become proficient in that area. There is no charge for education, okay, he says here, and it will be free. College was not meant to be owned by a few people. It is to be shared, as this is the hallmark of the Aquarian age, serving and sharing. Obviously, it says there will be certain levels of intellectual ability. And it goes
Is this in regards to those, I believe it's called the Akashic Records?
Well, the Akashic Records is a celestial library of all the history of the universe up till now. Yeah, all the planets, all the sub-universes. So those people that have the ability to go into the Akashic Records can read your past lives and where you've been and, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so that's really more meant for, you see, we lost our ability at one point, at different points, and especially over the last 40,000 years, where we had the ability to store knowledge and just have it all the time with us. We had telepathic languages. So we didn't have written language. When language started to get written down, that's when we really lost our ability to house knowledge within ourselves. And remember everything that we experienced, anytime we could pull it up and, any question you could have that knowledge available to you. So that will be probably where we'll get back to, but we have to start somewhere, from where we're at,
And aside from with the growth of education, then one of the other things that would probably have the most effectiveness of us, monetary. How do we, I know what you mentioned going back to a bartering type of.
Well, I think the first step is going to be the quantum financial system that they're talking about now, where you have the Bitcoins, where you have a computer kind of exchange of digital information that is considered to be of value.
Mm-hmm.
That you're exchanging. And people are going to frown at this, but I did not vote for President Trump both times. But I'm kind of a person, when I see somebody doing something good, I'm going to point out and say, that's a great idea. Right? I don't care what, Joe Biden, I voted for him, but he was dead the last year and a half, two and a half years of his administration. But my point is, I think that President Trump and Elon Musk may be planning by the next 4 years, by the end of this term, to pull away a bit from the international banking families and go more high tech with it. Have a financial system that is more self-sufficient rather than giving your money over to the banking system that you get to own it. You become your own bank.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think they're going to go back to the gold standard. And I think they're looking to go back to something that actually is based on something that you can own, that has where the paper is actually backed by something, and it's not just printed just for the sake of printing it. And
that's the first step in moving up, becoming more self-empowered. Pluto and Aquarius now in astrology, becoming more self-empowered so that you are not becoming so codependent. That's me. That's my, something's popping up. Don't worry about it. You don't become so codependent on other families. See, in the upper dimensions, they don't have any physical form. Their light rays are free. Their colors are beautiful. They're always exchanging abundance in that way. But we have to develop ourselves along the way. It's not going to take long, but it'll take till the end of this century. We got to get first contact, mate with contact. That's the very first step. Then we can decide what we want to, because major first contact is going to change every area of life on this planet. People are like, who are these extraterrestrials? Why are they so developed? Why are they so advanced? And an exchange of information about what is education like? What is politics? All those kinds of things can start to manifest. I think leaders in the fields of politics and religion are going to have a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Well,
is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we haven't touched on?
Gosh, we've touched on so much stuff. I can't think of anything.
I just want to make sure I don't, because this is going to be a long episode, and I wanted to make sure I had it to where the conversation touched upon everything in the book that we wanted to. The book is called Full Moon Message. All right. So how did you come up with why the title Full Moon Messages?
Because I would channel on full moons.
Now, was that because that was the strongest signal that you were able to get?
I feel that the Pleiadians are more lunar based. They're more Shakti, feminine, and goddess energy. So they wanted me to channel on the full moon because they have full moons there that they're always full. They feed off of it, their diet, the solar and lunar, but the lunar based Shakti energy, feminine goddess energy, that they want to, because we're very patriarchal on this planet for a long time. We need to balance. We need a balance between masculine and feminine. So they want to help bring that. But yeah, it is, I'm sorry, what was the original question again?
Oh, no, the name of the title of the book, Full Moon Messages.
Yeah. So the channeling started more seriously in 2007, 2008. I would take a topic and then I wait for the full moon and then ask the question to Ayin, what about this? And then I go, so I did that for 2 years, all full moons. And then I put it into a Kindle book form in 2009. And then a lot of the predictions, some of them didn't come true. I mean, it's 70% of the things that I'm saying come true. I would be a happy man. You're not going to get 100%.
No.
There may never be what some of the things that I'm saying.
No, we're still waiting for the flying cars. So, and the hoverboards from the Back to the Future.
But I thought I saw Elon Musk recently in a flying car. I think he's trying to get that going.
It wouldn't shock me, actually. We've been making such leaps and bounds in technology. It still amazes me when you can have a rocket come back, and it's just.
And the next forward from May of 2025 to May of 2029, the energy is moving technologically, really major breakthroughs, even on our own without the ET connection. There's a lot of things going on that are really.
But I think some of those advances are basically because some of that ET connection gave us some stuff. So we're just now.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk is definitely
an alien. Yeah, probably.
Orion system. And then it's going to be funny to watch. I'm predicting that he's going to experience, when they get him in these med beds, these med beds are part of Nikola Tesla's invention to heal and purify the nervous system and probably help repair the DNA, that he's going to want everybody to have a med bed.
It's all vibrational.
Yeah.
I mean, way back in years ago, like in 1920s, they killed cancer cells with vibrations, and all of a sudden that disappeared. So this is all vibrational technology that once you find these vibrations, it's all bets are off. It's just people want to make the money from it. And instead of healing people, they want to treat people.
And of all things that I'm looking forward to more than anything, we want our ancestors, we want our parents, we want our grandparents to age healthy, not deteriorate and suffer with arthritis or dementia or whatever. A lot of these things it's just, so those can be healed through these like you're saying. And that is combining light and sound technology that's advanced. The megahertz, the spin per second or something like that, we're supposed to be at 144,000 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people, this is according to Bashar from...
Well, is it 144, the note of A or C, or one musically isn't 144?
No. I think you're right. But
one of those tones vibrates at 144 or 1.44.
The average human being is living on 40,000 megahertz. So we're normal is 140. We're sleepwalking here. We've got to get our vibration to come up and raise up. And they're going to help us do that.
I'm looking forward to that, and I hope it happens. I hope June comes quick, and I hope they're right behind it. Lou Valentino, the book is called Full Moon Messages from the Pleiadians, UFO Contact 2024 to 2044, What to Expect. It's an interesting read. I cannot wait to actually get to because you do have a conversation with Ayim. Aim.
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 That's right.
Spelled A-I-M, pronounced Aim. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Now that I printed it, I'm going to read it. And you want to learn more about it, go to the website, www.yogavisionaries.com. You can learn all about his ebook there. You can also see some of the images that are up there that are actually beautiful on there. Very.
And that'll be a link to my YouTube account too.
It'll be in the description there. You can also get and learn about the astrological services that Lou offers as well. So you definitely want to check him out. He's got a YouTube channel. The link will be in there as well. And you can see all the other YouTube videos on the topic that he's actually created on his own for this. But I thought it was a fascinating discussion. And thank you so much for coming on and talking about this again. I appreciate it. You have a great rest of your day.
Same to you. Thank you, Steve.
Take care.